Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Harper. I'm the Executive Director of AACFB, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, Resources for Finance Professionals During the COVID-19 Crisis. Please note that today's webinar is being recorded, so all participant lines will be muted during the broadcast. However, you could submit a question at any time during today's presentation using the chat or Q&A box. Simply type your question into the chat or Q&A box, which will appear at the bottom of your screen, and the presenters will answer the questions at the end. Today's presenters are Patrick McAvoy with Centerstone SBA Lending, Mark Powell with Fountainhead Commercial Capital, and Wendy Roberts with Spectrum Business Financing. All have extensive experience with SBA lending and will be able to provide us some tips and suggestions on resources our attendees may be able to take advantage of. Everyone, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences with our members today. We're going to start this off by getting to know our attendees, and we have a couple of polls that we want to send out. So if you can take a look at your screen and see the poll question, do you have any experience with the SBA program? We want to get an idea of what kind of experience our attendees already have, and that will help our presenters as they go along. We'll give it just a couple of seconds for everybody to vote. All right. So hopefully you can see our results. It looks like about 42% say yes and 58% say no. So fairly evenly split there. So we have one more question. Oh. It's only showing my one poll, so we may only be able to ask that one question. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to Patrick. He's going to lead us off. And just a disclaimer, because as everyone knows, all of this information is evolving on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. And we want you to know that whatever you hear in this program could change at any minute. We wish it would not, but unfortunately, that's not the world we're living in right now. So I just wanted to let you guys know. Again, thank you to our presenters, and we will start off with Patrick.
Thanks, Monica. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. We certainly are living in a very precarious time, and as Monica said, it's changing by the moment. We just don't know it, but you know, we have quite a bit of relief efforts that are being made by the federal government and also on the state level. What I'm going to be discussing is relief resources at the federal level, and then the state, and also other jurisdictional levels, along with some other relief efforts as well. One of the primary federal relief resources is the SBA's program, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, which is directly through the SBA, through their website. Obviously, they've had some difficulties with the amount of small businesses trying to apply for that, but it's a program that's provided directly by the SBA through sba.gov. The program provides for loan relief or loan funds with particular emphasis on small businesses that have been affected negatively by the coronavirus. Loans are up to $2 million. At this point in time, all states are now participating. There was a point in time earlier a few weeks ago that not all states had applied, but all states, as I understand it, have been accepted into the program. The term is up to 30 years. The interest rate for a for-profit small business would be 3.75%, and then for any not-for-profit, which is a little different. Most SBA programs, well, all SBA programs under the the standard product do not accept not-for-profits, but in this case they do, and that rate is 2.75%. Basically, the terminal loan, the first 12 months are essentially deferred. So from the point that the note is signed, you can defer payments for the first 12 months. Next screen, please. So under the most recent legislation that was signed into law on Friday by President Trump, there was some expansion of the EIDL program, and they've simplified. They basically have, they're now doing an approval based on applicant's credit score. They've also eliminated any collateral provisions with respect to the program, including business assets. They've also provided for a $10,000 emergency grant cash that can be applied for on the same platform. And this can be forgiven if, in fact, if you use the proceeds for paid leave, maintaining payroll, or other operating costs, essential operating costs, like lease obligations and such. The credit elsewhere rule is waived. So if you have like a line of credit or what have you, that still can stand and doesn't make you ineligible. There are no loan fees. There's no guarantee fees. There's no prepayment penalties or fees. They've waived all those. So there's no fees involved in the loan. You must be in business beginning or up by January 31st, 2020 in order to qualify. Next screen. So the most popular program that is getting quite a bit of traction, and everyone is, when I say everyone, the majority of small businesses, and this is a product where I think loan brokers can also excel at, is the product that's called the Paycheck Protection Program. A lot of people refer to it as the PPP program. Under the CARES Act that was, again, just enacted last Friday, this product, and I'm in Mark from Fountainhead will go through more of the specifics of it, but essentially it's a loan product that is being delivered by existing preferred SBA lenders, as well as FDIC insured banks. In order for a bank that is non-SBA lender right now to participate, they have to apply for it, and I would imagine that it's a fairly simple process. So I would imagine that the majority of banks are going to want to participate in this product. Essentially, the loan product involves calculating the small business's average monthly payroll cost and multiplying it by 2.5 times. And that's going to be the loan amount, and the uses behind the funds that can be gotten under the program can be used for payroll costs, but it can also be used for other operating costs like rent, utilities, mortgage interest, health insurance, etc. The loan amount, the maximum loan amount is capped at $10 million. And again, it's really the lesser of 10 million or 2.5 times the average monthly payroll cost. So on the state and more local level, there are many states, and this is changing every day. There are many states that are enacting their own loan relief programs. So it's here in the state of Florida, there's a Florida State Emergency Disaster Loan Program. It's a bridge loan program. In many states like Iowa, Maryland, Massachusetts, I've listed them out, and that is growing. One of the ways that you can track this, Forbes is doing a very good job as best they can of tracking other states and resources. They're actually tracking federal resources, state resources, local resources, and that link and website reference is there for you. Also on a city level, many city jurisdictions are coming up with bridge loan programs. In some cases, they may be grant programs where funds are forgiven. There are many cities that are working with their economic development associations to provide relief to small businesses, okay? And there's also many private organizations, and I just listed just a small few, but you have Facebook, you have Amazon, Bacardi, Cabbage. I know Microsoft is offering relief. It's not necessarily a direct loan program, but they're providing relief resources to small businesses, and they're interacting online with small businesses to provide them with these relief programs. So you basically, you want to refer to Forbes. They typically have been updating it, pretty good at updating it on a daily basis. Next slide. So that basically concludes my portion, and then Mark will provide you with more details under the CARES Act.
So I'm having a slight technical difficulty where I think my PowerPoint went down. But I'm not certain.
Let me see if I can share. Does that work?
Perfect. Yep. So who is eligible? We got small businesses, 501c3s, non-for-profits, veteran organizations, tribal businesses. Some of the stuff is a little outside of what SBA's normal scope is. Also sole proprietors, independent contractors, and other self-employed individuals. Businesses with more than one physical location qualify so long as total combined employees are below 500 employees, unless the business operates under an NAICS code 72, which is, I believe, restaurants and hotels. Basically, it waives affiliation rules for businesses in the hospitality and restaurant industries, and applies current SBA affiliation rules to eligible nonprofits. So what is needed to determine eligibility? It has to be, the business has to be operational as of February 15th, 2020, and had employees for whom it paid salaries and payroll taxes or paid independent contractors. In calculating the total amount, it would be the average eligible monthly payroll costs excluding compensation above 100,000 in wages, and that's based on the prior 12 months multiplied by 2.5, plus the balance of any SBA loan closed between 1/31/20 and when the loan is made, or $10 million, whichever is lower. Now, some of the confusion is the 100,000 in wages. Does it include up to 100,000 and excluded over 100,000? It's up to 100,000, and that includes the other payroll costs associated with it. And then there was another question that people have been asking, and I lost it, but that's pretty much the way you figure out the amount. The eligible use of proceeds is the eligible payroll support, which includes the employee salaries, excluding compensation over 100, paid sick or medical leave, insurance premiums, interest paid on mortgages, excludes any prepayment or payment of principal, any rental payments, and utility payments. The interest rate is going to be at 0.5%, which deviates from what was initially said of 4%. And the term of the loan is 2 years, which again is deviated from the 10 that was initially stated. And it allows for complete deferment of the loan payments for at least 6 months. The loan's unsecured and unguaranteed, and the credit elsewhere rule is not being enforced. Other conditions, it says you can't apply for other programs through the SBA for the same purpose. I've been told, if they're applying for the EIDL loan and the PPP loan, they can still apply for both. They just can't take both, if that makes any sense. And then, the borrower has, if the borrower has an existing EIDL loan from, a flood or a hurricane or something like that, then it can be rolled into the amount. And there's an emergency EIDL grant of up to $10,000, and that can be subtracted from the amount of the PPP loan. Eligible borrowers will be required to make a good faith certification that the loan is necessary due to the uncertainty of current economic conditions caused by the COVID-19 virus. They will use the funds to retain workers and maintain payroll, lease, and utility payments, and are not receiving duplicative funds for the same uses from another SBA program. It is going to be a loan forgiveness program, and that amount, it's equal to the amount spent by the borrower during an 8-week period after the origination date of the loan on eligible payroll costs, interest payments on any mortgage incurred prior to February 15th, 2020, excluding principal and prepayments, payment of rent and any lease in force prior to February 15th, 2020, and payment on any utility for which the service began before February 15, 2020. Amounts forgiven may not exceed the principal amount of the loan, which only makes sense. Forgiveness on covered loans is equal to the sum of the following: eligible payroll costs excluding compensation above $100,000 in wages incurred during the covered 8-week period compared to the previous year or time period proportionate to maintaining employees and wages. Eligible payroll costs plus any payment of interest on any covered mortgage obligation excludes prepayment or payment of principal. Hang on. Plus any payment on any covered rent obligation and the utilities associated with it. So essentially facility costs. Borrowers will verify these payments through documentation required by lenders, such as, but not limited to, the IRS payroll expense forms 940 and 941, mortgage statements, lease statements, and utility statements. The amount forgiven will be reduced proportionately by any reduction in employees retained compared to the prior year, and reduced by the reduction in pay of any employee beyond 25% of their prior year compensation. To encourage employers to rehire any employees who have already been laid off due to the COVID-19 crisis, borrowers that rehire workers previously laid off will not be penalized for having a reduced payroll at the beginning of the period. Canceled indebtedness results from this section will not be included in the borrower's taxable income, and any loan amounts not forgiven at the end of the 1 year are carried forward as an additional loan. And again, this is a little bit dated, but the max term is now 2 years at 0.5% interest, and 100% of the loan guarantee remains intact. Short list of items we believe will need to process the 7A loan. and this isn't totally official yet, but the completed SBA application, which just came out yesterday, articles of incorporation or articles of organization of each borrowing entity, bylaws or operating agreement of each borrowing entity, all owners' driver's licenses, payroll expense verification documents to include IRS Form 940 and 941, and a payroll summary report with corresponding bank statement. If a payroll summary report is not available, employee pay stubs as of February 15th, 2020, or corresponding period with corresponding bank statement and a breakdown of payroll benefits, vacation allowance, allowance for dismissal, group health benefits, retired benefits, etc. 1019s, if it's an independent contractor, certification that all employees live within the United States. If any do not, you need to provide a detailed list with corresponding salaries for all employees outside of the U.S. Trailing 12-month profit and loss statement as of the date of the application for all applicants. Most recent mortgage statement or rent statement, and most recent utility bills, electric, gas, phone, internet, water. Guess that does it for me.
So Wendy is up next, and Wendy is going to share her experience as a broker in this environment.
Thank you, Monica. Good morning, everyone on the West Coast. Good afternoon, everyone on the East Coast. As you can imagine, from a broker perspective, we've been very busy since this first broke. We've been in shelter in place here for several weeks here in the Bay Area and California. And then from there, the entire state of California became a shelter in place. So we've talked to various businesses across numerous industries. And some of the things we're hearing, and I wanted to share those things with you today. The first was confusion over the programs. As everyone has, we're thankful for you guys to be here today to get this information. As Monica mentioned, a lot of this information has been coming from several different directions, and getting accurate information is very important. So once you obtain that information, it's very important to look at the dynamics of the company. So in order for them to be able to get the correct program. So one of them that you might want to look at is that a sole proprietor versus an LLC or a subchapter S corporation. Depending on that entity and how many employees they have and other factors, it will determine whether or not an EIDL is important to them or a CARES Act. Another area for our business owners has been frustration with the paperwork. The EIDL, until just a few days ago, was a full doc. There was a lot of confusion about what type of information would be required for that. Thankfully, over the last day or two, the SBA has refined those requirements, and now we have a 3-page application for the PPP that Patrick talked about earlier today. We do expect that to go live on April the 3rd, that's Friday. And I'm sure the banking industry and all of us in the lending community will be very, very busy helping people apply for the PPP. Another area has been the lack of cash, the concern around that. Cash is king, and hanging on to that cash is very, very paramount. I believe that these programs can help them with that factor that they are facing, and we're in a great position to be able to help them with that. Another area has been the fear of losing their business. Of course, this is front of mind for every company, and I'm sure you will be hearing this, and we definitely will be able to help them keep their businesses and help them thrive. And then the last point was that we've been hearing is, when is this going to end? Well, the projections, that goes back and forth, right, from almost daily, but we're hoping to be out of this by the end of June. And certainly we as brokers can be in a position to help business owners get back on their feet. Next slide, please. So what can you as a broker do? Get on calls like this, on webinars, learn about the programs. There's a lot of information out there. And as Patrick mentioned, Forbes is a great one to go to. You can also check with your Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Development Center, or SBDC, the SBA.gov. All of those are great sites for you to be able to get the information that you need. And then one of the most important factors is communicating with your business owners. I can't say enough about communicating. And you also need to be a great listener too, because they're facing challenges that most of us, if not all of us, have never faced before. And then most importantly, I think sharing information with other brokers. Obviously, collaboration is important to keep up to date, and we can continue to share this kind of information through webinars. And lastly, we can look for opportunities to assist. We are in a great position. We have a great skill set. We can help business owners all across the industries in our beloved communities, being able to help them get through this and to the other side. And then I'm sure there's going to be additional business for us to be able to look for opportunities. Next. Thank you, everyone.
We have quite a few questions that have piled up. So I'm just going to start at the top and work my way down. And anybody who has feels like they have the answer, step up and answer. So the first question is, will this recording be emailed to us? We're going to be putting it on the AACFB website in our education section. And honestly, I'm probably going to put it up on YouTube for the general public to watch as well, since it is pretty pertinent information right now. Next is, I'm assuming you'll email us the presentation. Yes. One of the questions I keep getting from my clients is whether their credit score requirement for them to be eligible.
I think that's a great question because we haven't seen anything on that as yet.
So we don't know yet.
Nope.
Yeah, we don't know that yet. That is a question that a lot of us are asking.
Okay. Are equipment finance companies and/or specialty finance companies also qualified?
Yeah, all small businesses are qualified.
All small businesses, okay. For the SBA EIDL loans, are loan broker firms eligible businesses, or are they considered firms involved in lending activities?
That is a good question. Under that program, that's uncertain. My opinion is they probably are qualified. They are eligible, but it's unclear.
Okay. Please touch on the 6-month payment offered by the SBA on any existing or new SBA loans.
My understanding is it's relief loans that were booked, or I should say disaster loans that were booked since January 31st. So if they, were impacted by a hurricane or a flood or something like that, they could roll that in. I have not heard if that's a true 7A loan or not, though. A regular 7A loan.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What commission is Fountainhead paying of PPPs?
I believe the regulation that came out yesterday had said 1% for up to $350,000, from $350,000, $1 to $2 million is a 0.5 point, and over $2 million is a 1/4 point.
Right. The SBA has set it up so that it's designated by the SBA as far as what the referral fee that can be paid.
Has anyone seen a link to the PPP application? They said, I've seen a sample, but nothing that can currently be used.
I heard today. Yeah, sorry, Patrick. Yeah, I heard today that Chase was going to be posting theirs on Friday. I heard that from a customer this morning. And it's going to be electronic for them.
But nobody's seen one active yet.
No, We've seen the paper forms that came in last night from the SBA, but I haven't seen anything active as yet.
Ours will be electronic too. Fountainhead.
Has there been any clarity on if every loan will qualify for forgiveness?
The clarity is going to be based on, you know, your payroll. There is a formula, if you will.
Okay.
So it'll be based on that formula.
Yeah, generally speaking, in order to get forgiveness, the majority of the use of proceeds has to be used for payroll. There is a 20% rule where you can, if you use it for other purposes like rent, utilities, up to 25% of those uses would allow you to get forgiveness. But that's basically the way they're setting it up.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well, based on the literature from SBA last night.
And how, I know we probably don't know this, but how long will it take to process an application and provide funding? Guessed.
That's still a good question. We're hoping we can do it within the matter of a couple of days once we have a completed application.
Right.
Again, it's all going to depend on how you know, tedious the SBA gets in terms of the information that's requested.
Right.
But there's really no underwriting. So it's just a matter of, you know, checking boxes to make sure the documentation is there and correct.
Yeah, there's still a little bit of a lack of clarity as far as protocol is concerned, but it should be fairly quick. I would say within a couple of days at the most.
Question, will customers need a broker or a banker to apply for PPP?
No.
Okay. So if these are submitted for the EIDL, do we still go through the preferred lender or through the SBA website? If through the SBA website only, how does a broker make anything on this?
Yeah, so the EIDL loan is not a participant loan with SBA lenders. So myself at Centerstone Market, Fountainhead, we any small business would have to go through the SBA's website, sba.gov. As far as brokers, I mean, you could provide them with assistance. You know, that's, I'm not aware of what the restrictions might be under that product as far as, you know, providing for some type of applicant, you know, help as far as helping them. But unfortunately, that product being delivered is delivered directly through the SBA and their website. So that might be something you'll have to figure out with whatever applicant that you have as a client.
What's the difference between PPP and EIDL loan in a nutshell?
Well, the PPP loan is, those are loans that are being dispersed by participating preferred lenders, as well as FDIC insured banks that decide to participate in the product. So in other words, any bank that is willing to participate in that product, you can go to that bank and have your client apply, and you can work with that bank. In some cases, those lenders will provide an agency or an agent with a fee, a referral fee. Some will, some won't. So be aware of that. And then the EIDL loan is a direct loan from the SBA. So that's the difference.
Do you have to be a U.S. citizen to apply for these loans?
It's unclear. I've heard different things. I have the same question, so it's unclear. It looks like that you may not be eligible, but it's still unclear. There is that question, I think, on both applications,
Yeah.
ADL as well as Triple P, and maybe Mark can tell us, maybe he can confirm that it is or it isn't. So.
My understanding is of the ownership of the company, if more than 20% isn't owned by a U.S. company, then it's ineligible. Or 20% of the ownership. If more than 20% of the ownership is owned by a non-U.S. citizen, then it's ineligible. That's my understanding.
Right.
Next question. It's my understanding that clients need to apply with their bank. Are you taking any applications from clients that are not your current customers?
Well, again, under the PPP program, it's at the discretion of the lender. I would say that I believe Fountainhead is, I can't speak for Mark, but I believe Fountainhead is as well.
Yep.
A lot of lenders are probably going to be protecting their own commercial and small business portfolios first. So there may be some bank, I know of some lenders that will not be taking on any potential clients other than what they already have in their current portfolio.
We're actually being asked by several banks to, in essence, manage the program for them. Right. And they're funneling all of their customers to us.
Right.
The next question. So the PPP can be done through a preferred lender and the broker can make a commission? Question mark.
The broker, yes. Under the PPP program, there is a referral fee that can be paid. The SBA has specified what that fee can be. It's based on the loan size. So for instance, Mark had indicated that for loans up to $350,000 under the PPP program, the agent can get paid up to a point.
Okay. Please provide some clarity under what circumstances a 7A loan will be provided 6 months forgiveness. We're just on a webinar that advised business brokers to have clients close their acquisition loans in process by 9/27/2020 will automatically be given the first 6 months, forgiven the first 6 months.
Yeah. There's a lack of clarity as far as that aspect so far. Maybe Mark, you have more details on it, but
for the PPP loan, yes, it's 6 months. For the other loans, I agree. It's vague. We need more clarity.
Yeah, I mean, in the CARES Act that was legislated and signed off on by Trump, it provides for it indicates, although it's not clear, that the SBA will pay for any new loans. It will pay the first 6 months of principal, interest, and fees, and for any existing loans. But it's not clear how that's going to work, and we haven't been given any guidance as to how that's going to work. I did hear that if a small business already has an SBA loan and they've requested a deferment, that the SBA would not pay during the deferment period, but once the deferment period is up, they would begin that 6-month payment of the principal, interest, and fees cost. But again, we have not been provided any guidance on that yet, so we're not sure.
Question, how does the broker collect PPP commission? How does that work?
That's a good question. I'm not sure how we're doing it yet. I mean, at the end of the day, the way our application is set up online, it does ask for the broker's name and company name. So you put that in, and their email address. So, at some point in time, that would be tallied up and, a check cut.
Right.
I think the key thing is getting the funds out there to people.
Right.
I think that's that's first and foremost on everybody's mind. Getting paid is secondary at this point.
Yeah, agree. I think a lot of this will come out in the next week or so as we try to, get these applications in, and as we get more clarity, I think then they'll talk about how the brokers are going to get paid.
Indeed.
The question is there a form built into the process for a broker, or does the broker get documentation up front?
For our website, you'll complete the online form first, and then you'll get an email with the direction and a portal to upload everything into that, and that direction will be, in essence, the checklist. And the checklist is going to include everything that's needed, in essence, to process the loan and to close the loan. So it'll be an all-in-one thing. There won't be a second step.
Yeah, I think for every lender that is paying a referral fee, I think it's going to be a different process, and there's no specification as far as the way. And we although right now we don't have clarity on that, so I would imagine that lenders that are paying fees could do it differently.
We have a question about where people can put their questions. So just as a reminder, please put it in the Q&A box if you have a question. The chat box is not showing up for me for some reason. So if you put something in the chat box, please move it over to the Q&A box, and that way I can get your question asked. Next question is, does broker document with their own form up front, or is a form built into the online process? I think that was along the same lines.
Yeah, we have a broker application, so you have to sign up with us to be a broker. And then within the closing documents, and this isn't perfectly clear yet, but within the closing documents, there's probably going to be a broker form for the broker to sign off on, that basically attests to the fact that he's not taking additional, or she's taking additional fees.
Right.
So brokers should probably get set up with you guys first.
Correct.
Before they start trying to funnel loans into you.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
What if we were an LLC and we don't have W-2 payroll and we only pay via 1099?
Well, then you would document the 1099 payments.
Exactly.
So they can still do it as long as they supply the 1099.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's correct.
Says if the borrowing rate is 0.5% and there are no fees charged, how is there room for any broker fees?
What the Fed's built in.
Yeah, they as part of the program, the loan program, they built in a fee within the loan. So that's the only way that they allowed it to happen. So.
Next question, are there any commissions allowed for more than $350,000, and if so, how much?
Between $350,000, $1 and $2 million, it's 0.5%, and over $2 million is 0.25%.
Right. But bear in mind, the majority of the loans for these small businesses are going to be below 350. It's going to be rare that there's going to be many loans over 350. It's a fairly small loan program.
How does a broker get approved to do the PPP referrals?
Again, complete an application with us, and we review it, and then we advise if they're in the program or not.
Yeah, I think every lender is different. We have kind of a different protocol, but ultimately you have to get approved by the lender assuming that they're participating in the program and assuming that they're participating as far as paying referral fees. So.
Much of it is based on, some of the typical things, credit score, background, the whole bit.
Question: how does a broker apply for a loan for their company to keep them from letting their 1099 contractors go and their own paycheck?
The same way that you would help another small business. So you would go through the application process yourself.
Okay. Not sure if I missed it. Are nonprofits eligible?
It says that it is, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. The 2.75% would be
I have a
applicable to
question on that because there's nonprofits like 501c3 and then there's not-for-profits 501c6. Do they make a distinction between those two?
501c3.
Only C3?
That's the only thing that's showing, yes. And
Yeah.
veterans organizations, which I forget what the number is on that.
Yeah.
501c19. And then the tribal business concerns described in section 31B2C.
Right.
Whatever that is.
But they restrict it to an employee count, so you have to have less than 500 employees.
Right.
Will you be sharing details on signing up with your banks to originate loans? And then he had a question to everybody: are the banks on this panel accepting new brokers to originate loans? So I guess the question is, if you aren't already signed up with a Fountainhead or a Centerstone or someone, are you going to be taking new people?
Yes.
Yes. But I mean, again, I think it's not really proper to reach out to either one of us through the association. I think it's more important that you reach out directly to Mark, or to Mark's organization, or to me or my organization directly outside of the association.
Mm-hmm. What if we applied for the EIDL online form on Monday? Do we need to do that again and also fill out the application?
It's a good question. As Wendy pointed out, and I think I indicated, the SBA literally just 2 days ago, they kind of redid the IDL application process and protocol. It's possible. It's unclear, and I just got texted by a client of mine that tried to go on the system today, and they were unable to get through. So they're still having, it appears to be technical issues, but
It's been like that for several days.
It's been like that for several days, and all I can tell you is that do it again. Yeah, keep doing it because yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I've heard from customers, before they did the website upgrade and then after. But yeah, you're right, Patrick. Keep doing it until you get your forms up there.
Yeah. It's just it's very frustrating, but I mean you just have to understand that they do not have the manpower. They also don't have the bandwidth with respect to their portal site to really handle all the requests, because everybody's going on that site. So.
Next question, they're confirming factoring companies are precluded under the standard 7A Express and 504 programs. Does the small business language include factoring companies now, or are they still excluded?
I don't know that answer.
I believe that they are now included, as long as they're, considered to be, at least I believe under the PPP program, as long as they're considered to be a small business. I haven't seen anything that excludes them, but again, it's not very clear. A lot of these questions we're asking right now. So.
How about the small business owners with E2 visa that is allowed to work and own the business in the U.S. However, they are non-permanent resident or U.S. This falls under the U.S. citizen question.
Right. As we understand it, and Mark can chime in again, but as I understand it, if the majority ownership, above 20, if it's above 20% is owned by somebody who's not a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident, that they would not be eligible. That's my understanding right now, but we're still trying to get clarity on that.
Same here. Still pretty ambiguous.
Yeah.
Is the application for the PPP and the EIDL the same application?
No.
No.
Two separately distinct applications.
Right. And process.
Correct.
If we don't have W-2 payroll, rent, or mortgage payments, do we not qualify for the PPP loan? How do we submit the application for the EIDL? Is there a portal we upload the PDF application?
The EIDL loan is all through SBA Direct.
Yeah. And yeah, the application is online with SBA.gov, direct through the SBA. As far as applying for the PPP, there is no, I mean, that's directly through an SBA lender or a bank, and they will, deal with their application, whether it's online or through paper format. I mean, right now I have a paper format. We might convert it to an electronic format, but as far as the costs are concerned, we're still trying to get clarity on, what other operating costs might be inclusive. I mean, you can, if you don't have rent, if you don't have mortgage interest, if you don't have payroll, if you don't have some type of compensation wage costs, I'm not sure that it's going to be eligible, just because I wouldn't understand. I mean, how do you have a business that doesn't have some type of wage component to it? I mean, the whole idea behind that program is to basically preserve jobs. So if it's in violation of that idea, then it may not work for you.
If a client applies for both the EIDL and the PPP loan, can they be approved for both?
The answer is, and I think Mark talked about it, the answer is yes, but you can't double dip on the cost. So if you utilize the PPP program for payroll, if your use of proceeds is for payroll, you cannot also use the EIDL program for payroll. So my suggestion is that you have small business owner operators apply for both, but utilize the costs differently so that you don't double dip.
Yeah, and I think, Monica, that goes back to my point, is that it's really important for brokers and for lenders to work with the business owners so that they know which program is appropriate for them based on their type of entity and employee base and et cetera.
Right.
Question, can we hire new employees that we plan to hire and have their payroll covered?
Yes.
Okay. And we just have a request for when you're speaking to just identify yourself, since people don't know who's who.
Okay.
And this is Monica asking the question. If we don't have W-2 payroll, rent, or mortgages, this might have been the same question. Can an owner who is paid via a guaranteed payment be included in the calculation of the monthly payroll? Also, can a 1099 person be included?
I mean, this is Patrick McAvoy. As long as you can document the payment of wages or compensation, essentially that's what SBA wants you to do. I mean, there's a lack of specificity as far as documentation. I mean, there's a lot of different things out there, but the overall reality for SBA purposes is that they want to preserve jobs. So as long as you go under the rule of basically being able to provide for documentation. So 1099, yes, if you can document what's been paid, and if you can calculate an average monthly wage or payroll, that's okay. If somebody's being paid in a certain manner, again, if you can document it and then figure out what the average monthly wage or payroll cost is, then yes, you know, again, you just have to understand the reasoning behind what the rules are.
Is the 0.5% interest rate only for the PPP loan that could be forgiven?
Well, yes, that rate is only for the PPP program, and under the EIDL, this is Patrick, they have a set rate for for-profit businesses at 3.75, and then they have a lower rate for not-for-profits, I think at 2.75.
And again, the loan actually, this is Mark, the loan actually gets created, if you will, after the forgiveness period, if you will. So whatever's left over is what you're paying the 0.5% on for 2 years.
Right.
The next question was, do we have any idea on documents needed for the PPP? This is I think we've already covered this, but
Yep.
if you want to reiterate.
Yeah, this is Mark. We're still waiting direction from SBA. On our website, we have a series of documents that, you know, we feel are going to be the ones that are used, but we're not certain yet, you know, from SBA.
Right.
How do you come up with the dollar amount to lend?
Again, I covered that earlier on, but it's, I'll read it again. The average eligible monthly payroll cost, excluding compensation above 100,000 in wages, based on prior 12 months, multiplied by 2.5, which represents months, plus the balance of any SBA loan closed between 1/31/20 and when this loan is made, and you know, or 10 million, whichever is less. And that SBA loan is my understanding, and it's not perfectly clear, but that's another disaster loan outside of this program.
Someone's asking if we can post your contact information after this, and I'm happy to post information on the community, on the AACFB community. Once this presentation is ready to be viewed, I can post everybody's contact information if you guys are okay with that.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes,
with that.
that's fine.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Says for very small single member LLCs not issuing any 1099s, what is the assistance?
If they have a payroll, they're fine. They just have to prove that payroll.
Right.
How do you apply for the $10,000 grant?
It's through SBA.gov and their portal on the website. So.
Monica, I'm sorry. I kind of wanted to address the prior question on the LLC. This is Wendy. If they, like in the state of California, they're considered single members if it's one person. So they file a Schedule C on their 1040. So it's possible that they might be eligible through either program. But that's one of the things that they need to look at with, you know, their accountant or CPA or whoever to decipher that. But they should be eligible for either one of those programs.
Right.
Okay. What if the applicant had a previous bankruptcy discharged 3 years ago? Does that disqualify them from either the PPP or the EIDL?
I haven't seen anything on it. This is Mark. Again, one of our questions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a question that, this is Patrick. That is a question that we have. I've heard different answers, so I don't want to go with an answer yet.
Okay. SBA 7A and 504 loans allow for loan packager fees. I believe these fees are allowed for the CARES Act, but did not see any dollar amounts. Do you know what these might be?
I think those are the fees that we spoke of already.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Could you do an example? If a company has a 15,000 payroll, how much would they qualify for the PPP loan? There's an online, online calculator, if you plug that in, the max loan amount is like 37,000. Does that seem right?
Well,
I believe
it's
so, yeah.
unclear. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's unclear. I'm sorry. Ms. Patrick, are we saying that 15,000 is the average monthly payroll? Or are we saying that that's the annual payroll? So,
Yeah, if it's the average monthly, you multiply the average monthly by 2.5 and that's your loan amount.
right. So then you have, so 37,500 would be the answer in that.
Right.
So that sounds about right.
Yep.
If that's, yeah. If someone has 50 plus 1099 contractors, can you accept a detailed list, or would they have to send on all of the 1099 documents?
My understanding, and this is Mark, is they have to send in all the 1099s. It has to be proven.
Yeah, that's my
Whether
understanding.
that's going to
too.
be the case or not, I don't know, but that's the way
Yeah.
we.
Yeah, and it's also the forms, the 941s, the 940s, all of the payroll reports, as well as the detail on the 1099s. That's my understanding. This is Wendy.
Yeah, I mean, this is Patrick. I mean, I think the most prudent way to do it would be to certainly get all the documentation. So,
And the other question that we have pertaining documentation is what is going to be required to prove that the person on the payroll is a person, you know, working in the US.
right.
Okay. Do you know if on a 501c3, if those require a PG and based on individual credit score? For example, a church that wasn't started by a single individual, but operated by a board.
Don't have the detail on that yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. Can the company include the matching portion of the FICA in calculating the monthly payroll?
My understanding, this is Mark, is no, it only pertains to the employee, whatever the employee has to pay.
Right.
Some of these are just conversations with people. They're saying if you applied for the EIDL loan before 3/30, you may need to, again, the updated new process allows you to consider 10,000 in advance, which you could be forgiven as a grant. Does that all sound?
That's correct.
Okay. The SBA said to do the EIDL form even if you've already sent in an application. That was from our legal counsel, Ken Green. So for anybody asking that question. And then there's some concern that they've had a client that's also had very little luck going through the SBA site. So that's probably because it's being slammed right now, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, and this was Monday, I believe, I had heard from somebody that there was over 1 million applications already in for the EIDL.
Yeah, that's correct. I heard the same thing from a reliable source. So yes, it was over 1 million.
Yeah. It's,
Question, who would be considered owners for a 501c3 company or organization? Because those are nonprofits.
Yeah, usually they're board driven. So yeah. A signature on that would be whoever's an authorized signer on their banking, you know, resolution.
Okay.
It should be spelled out within bylaws, depending on what type of company they formed, you know, bylaws or operating agreement.
If a company does not have employees or 1099 right now, but will hire new employees or independent contractors in April, will this be covered by PPP, and what type of documentation do you supply for those new employees or contractors?
I haven't heard anything much about new employees, just existing, because everything is trailing 12 months.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's unclear. There may be a way to do it, but it's unclear yet. So
Again, to me, it's based on the payroll from the trailing 12 months. So I'm just taking an educated guess here. I don't think it's going to be covered.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, again, the purpose behind the product is to maintain employees, but also rehire. So it might be considered under rehiring or hiring or rehiring. So we're not sure. I mean, this is a fairly fluid situation, and as these situations come about, they may amend it. I mean, that's what I would say.
Question, what if the LLC is a single member LLC and has not filed their 2018 taxes yet?
2018 or 19?
It said 18.
I mean, 18 is well over a year ago. If they
Yeah,
Yeah.
like they
Yeah.
should have done that by now.
exactly.
Right, exactly.
It's,
So
I
I
mean,
think-
it's a good question, but
Yeah.
you know, if you haven't filed 18 yet, you must be in a little bit of hot water. So,
Right. Yeah.
You may want to
Yeah.
fly under the radar if you haven't filed your taxes.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Some question on how do we sign up as a new broker? I'm sure you guys have that information on your websites.
Yes.
Will marketing expenses count as debt or expenses that are considered?
Nope.
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Is the payroll calculation simply a comparison of total payroll for the 90-day time frame versus the average prior monthly payroll?
It's pretty clear that it's the trailing 12 months average.
Okay. Is there no PG, there's no PG correct for only the PPP or the IDL as well? Trying to read that correctly.
I don't know about
Yeah.
the EIDL, but definitely there's no PG for the
PPP.
PPP program.
Right.
Someone said, I had a customer successfully complete an EIDL app yesterday. They received a confirmation and a case number. That's good.
Well, that's good to hear.
One out of about 90
Oh, yeah.
that I've heard. So
Right.
might
Yeah.
want to
Yeah,
buy a
this-
lottery ticket too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Wendy. I actually had a customer apply around the 19th of March, and he did get that email and that the case was being under review, but he has not received any proceeds as yet.
Right.
Yeah. So it looks like we've gotten to all of our questions. I wanted to touch on something real quickly that we were discussing before about a recommendation that, because I know some of these things for brokers, it doesn't work the same way as they're used to, you know, helping their client and getting a commission. And some of these things don't allow for that. And there was a part of our conversation yesterday about brokers might want to partner with a local bank and become get a fee for packaging for them because these banks are going to be overwhelmed. Is that something you guys recommend for brokers who are needing some cash flow?
I would, yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
Because
Now,
obviously
again,
the
how
banks
many-
aren't prepared
yeah.
for this either.
Yeah, how many
Yeah.
smaller banks and even medium-sized banks are going to participate because they don't really participate in SBA now, and a lot of them don't understand it. You know, again, I tend to want to work with somebody who I know knows the programs.
Correct. Yep.
Right. So I think, you know, from a broker's perspective, you know, obviously we want to help them get through this crisis with everybody else. And that would be one way that they can potentially get some income along with some of the commissions that are being paid on these things. And then just being a resource for their clients and, you know, giving that goodwill so that once things do turn around, that's the first person those small businesses go to when they're ready to, you know, get equipment again. So,
Yeah.
but it looks like, oh, I think I have one more question. If a company had 12 employees and an average monthly payroll of 100,000 pre-virus, but maintains 100,000 monthly payroll for 8 employees post-virus, will this be forgivable?
It'll depend if they hire anybody back. And the amount that they reduce salaries by can't exceed 25% from when it was good times, if you will.
Right.
Okay. It looks like that's all of our questions, and we've come up a little over an hour, but wow, you know, thank you guys all for sharing this information. I know it's changing daily, hourly, and we hope to be able to keep our members updated, but I want to thank you guys for your time and efforts today, and I want to thank everybody for attending. And we will try to bring everybody as much information as we can as soon as we can. But with that, I think we are going to be closing out this webinar. It is being recorded, so I will have this up on our website as soon as I can, hopefully later today. And I will send everybody a link to that as well.
Great.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Stay
Bye.
safe.
Thanks,
Stay
everyone.
well.
All right. See you all.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.